Just interested in supporting the youth, I want to thank everyone tonight for showing up. The purpose of this event is to give the youth a voice and to let the issues we are experiencing be heard. And candidates, you better pay attention because you will be asked to make a pledge, a tangible one, to a specific youth-related action step you will take if elected to office. All right. My name is Caleb, and I'm currently a junior at Durfee High School. I'm involved in a variety of clubs and organizations, including Interact Club, DECA, Skills USA, People of Color Unity, Upward Bound, and the Talent Search Program, along with early college programs. I feel that the youth voice and the youth involvement are important because we as a prospering community of like-minded individuals have the power to influence our peers, inspire younger students, and shape Fall River's future. Fall River needs some improvements, and we want to be a part of it. We want to be leaders and change makers, but we can't do it alone. We want to be part of the solution and work with you. Our panelists will talk about the issues and challenges that they have faced or are currently facing. Tonight, our voices will be heard, but this is only the first step. Our next step, and this includes everyone, will be working together and taking action to help the youth of today and the Fall River of tomorrow. And with that, I will join my co-facilitators, Wendy and Eva. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, I am Eva Bandari, and I am a senior at Durfee High School.
Hi, I'm Wendy Garflip from United Neighbors of Fall River, and we're delighted that you're all here. We'd like to welcome, on behalf of Senator Michael Roderick's office, Kyle Neves, and on behalf of Representative Carol Fiola's office, Tyra Lee. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Caleb.
Tonight, we will be referencing statistics from recent Fall River YRBS. The Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System monitors 6 categories of health-related behaviors that contribute to leading causes of death and disability among youth and adults.
They include behaviors that contribute to unintentional injuries and violence, sexual behaviors related to unintended pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV infection, alcohol and other drug use, tobacco use, unhealthy dietary behaviors, inadequate physical activity.
The YRBS also measures the prevalence of obesity and asthma and other health-related behaviors, plus sexual identity and sex of sexual contacts.
Let's get started. Upward of 1,200 students were asked during the past 12 months, did you feel so sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more in a row that you stopped doing some usual activities?
30.2% responded yes.
Hi, my name is Lauren Burnett. I'm a junior at Durfee High School. Growing up in Fall River for me was an experience that definitely shaped who I am as a person now. From pre-K to middle school, I attended a predominantly white Catholic school. Entering freshman year at Durfee, I felt completely lost and confused by the sudden change that is high school. From the overwhelmingly harder workloads to the claustrophobically packed hallways, high school was different than my previous experiences. I quickly learned that I wasn't the only one. Growing up partially isolated from opposing ideologies, I thought that anxiety and mental illness were something taboo, never to be spoken about and kept to yourself. But through exposure to more diverse people and talking to others, I saw that not only was I not alone in feeling stressed and overwhelmed, but that so many of my classmates were going through similar things. Although steeped in thinking mental health should never be talked about publicly, I quickly came to understand that mental health of students should never be considered taboo. The isolation of mental health from conversations leads many students to self-cope in many harmful ways, through drugs, sex, alcohol, violence, and suicide. The avoidance of discussions and appropriate supports of students' mental health most affects students of minority communities like LGBTQ+ and people of color. Being part of both those communities myself, it deeply saddens me to know that the avoidance of these conversations and lack of high-level resources is hurting my community. Not only are people like me dealing with the normal teenage stresses and anxieties, but also with being part of communities that are not fully accepted, respected, supported, and embraced. Increasing numbers of teenagers across all demographics are reporting to experience poor mental health. According to a recent Youth Risk Behavior Survey, 5 in 10, or 49.5% of Fall River students reported poor mental health. 16% thought about suicide, and 8% made a plan. Because mental health is such a taboo, those affected have an increased risk of high-risk behaviors, such as drug use, unprotected intercourse, and violence as a means to self-cope, habits that will inevitably follow them into their adult life. One thing I feel passionate about is that although we may have a difficulty in coping now, or are sad, or even stressed, we are not broken. We are not lost or broken. For some of us, we have been unfairly punished by our society's norms. While my school, in my experience, has amazing supports, such as guidance and adjustment counselors, I have seen firsthand that many students are scared to reach out because of the taboo of asking for help. Fear of their parents and guardians might say, fear of their peers. There are many other issues that we face that seem to us are being overlooked. I don't want to sit in silence as we face these problems. I want to be a voice for those who are too scared to speak up. Well, I know every problem that my generation faces probably won't be fixed, at least not in my lifetime. I want to be able to, at least if only for one, show them that they do not need to be fixed, but that they can be supported. There is nothing wrong with what they are feeling. The only thing that is wrong with them is not getting the support they need. I want to show others that they can reach their goals and that they are seen. Improving the mental health of our youth population will help put an end to the cycles of violence, poverty, and drug abuse. Thank you.
According to the YRBS National League, 27% of teens report high levels of stress, 31% feeling overwhelmed as a result of stress.
34% of teens reports that they think that the next school year will be even more stressful, and 83% report school as their primary stressor.
Hi, my name is Faith Cadero, and I'm a senior at Durfee High School, and I have lived in Fall River my whole life. I've heard the phrase 13 going on 30 so many times, which is such a common saying which refers to a child's mindset or attitude. But if anything, I feel like I'm not turning a legal adult in January, but it feels like I've been treated like an adult since I've entered high school. This doesn't apply to only me, but also my peers, who I've seen crumble under the pressure, desperate to find an outlet. Sick of being told that it's high school stress, it's just hormones, or even you're stressed now, wait until you become an adult, it gets worse. Many of my peers have found an outlet through alcohol, nicotine, and weed. This is not a new correlation between stress and these outlets. Growing up, we have seen adults go on a smoke break when stressed, drinking wine or beer after having a hard day at work, or de-stressing by smoking a blunt to calm oneself. We have seen adults do this, so it makes sense that the kids who are forced to grow up and act, talk, and stress like adults are doing the same thing to de-stress. However, this isn't everyone, but the youth are no longer the youth once they hit high school in this city. Not only are we forced to act like adults, but we get no empathy from actual adults. There's one story that sticks with me. It happened one day after school. I had a shift that started at 4. And if you've ever seen the traffic at Durfee after school, that leaves me no free time to get food or rest typically. I clocked in and had mentioned to a coworker, a teenager, how I was tired, and then there was this middle-aged coworker who looked at me and scoffed. She asked, "Didn't you just get here and you're already tired?" I'd explained how I had a meeting before school and school itself all before my shift. Clearly, she had no understanding of the stress that not only was making my brain, but body tired. And I think now is a good time to put into perspective for all adults. I'm currently taking a career and technical education class for 3 periods straight, an advanced placement math class, and 2 college classes through early college at Durfee. I am also student body president, National Honor Society president, vice president of History Abroad, which I have to pay for a trip all by myself through fundraising in my own wallet. I'm in the yearbook club, and 5 days out of the week, I work at Starbucks. Let's throw in college applications, participating in this program, and participating in many after-school events. Now, after hearing all of this, people wonder why I'm stressed and tired. I don't know when I have the time to fit de-stressing into my calendar. There's some teachers that get it, and there's some that don't. Let's be honest, there's students out there who are more APs than me, there are students who are more involved than me, and there are some students who aren't either, but we are all stressed. We need built-in opportunities, not just in schools, but in the community to de-stress. Aren't you stressed? De-stressing can't be based on having money for a therapist. We need free options for all residents of Fall River. Statistics show most working people carry an inordinate amount of stress but do nothing to fix it. Now statistics are showing the same thing for students. We do not want to be stressed out adults. We do not want to grab a beer to de-stress or go out for a cig break. Quite honestly, I just want to be a kid. Thank you.
23.5% reported that they have used an electronic paper product.
When asked, how old were you when you had your first drink of alcohol other than a few sips, 9.7% said 15 to 16-year-old, 8.8% said 13 to 14-year-olds, and 14% said 12 years or younger.
7% reported taking prescription pain medicine without a doctor's prescription or differently than how a doctor told them to use it.
5.7% said that during the past 12 months, they've been offered, sold, or given an illegal drug on school property.
Hello, my name is Rachel Lema. I'm the senior class president at Durfee High School, and I've lived in Fall River for about 15 years. Having been raised in an Ethiopian immigrant household, academic success has always been a core value in my life. Having been a gifted and talented student at Sylvia Elementary and Matthew J. Cuss Middle School, my parents saw a bright future ahead of me. But as a senior on the verge of graduation, I look back on my high school years in the Fall River public school system, and I feel that it has failed me and others. Teacher shortage has severely affected my education, causing aspiring students like me to have to work extra hard, to have to advocate for ourselves by finding resources outside of school in order to learn what we need to learn about. The teacher shortage is more than just, we don't have teachers, let's get some teachers. There's a complexity to this problem that ends up shifting the focus from teachers to the more important subject, students. I'd like to take a moment to reveal how teacher shortage has affected me and my peers in the context of Fall River. When I was a rising junior, I was particularly excited for my class schedule. After having taken the typical prerequisite classes in my freshman and sophomore year, I was excited to stock up on rigorous AP classes, specifically AP Physics 2 as someone interested in engineering. I still remember the day that I was pulled aside during lunch and told I couldn't take AP Physics 2 because there would no longer be a teacher available. My friend, who is actually a student panelist with us today, Aduna Lua, was told that she couldn't take AP Government for the same reason. That was only just me and Adun, and that was only just AP Physics 2 and AP Government that I mentioned weren't available. Every other student that wanted to be in AP Physics 2 and other unavailable classes were in the same shoes. This dilemma ultimately forces students to change their education for the convenience of what the school has. If you want students to be the future of Fall River, of America, then how can you be the same people that hinder them from success? That was only just the beginning of experiences with teacher shortage. The teacher shortage is affecting more than just high school students, but middle school students too. In her 8th grade year, my sister's math teacher injured her finger and never came back to school. My sister's class was left teacherless for 6 months. They were lucky to even get a substitute. My sister would vent to me about her frustration with the situation, and that frustration followed her into her freshman year of high school here at Durfee. As a freshman, my sister feels she is a year behind in math due to not having a permanent teacher. This is ironic, considering that her 8th grade class was also a part of the Gifted and Talented program. Freshman year is supposed to be an exciting new milestone for students both in education and experience, but my sister found her very first 2 weeks to be stressful. She fought to change her schedule, hunting down deans and counselors to try to get switched into a higher math class. When I came home from school, I saw her spending hours on Khan Academy and Ingenuity to try to catch up on the algebra she missed. My sister should not have to advocate for herself for something that should have been provided to her by the city. Because of situations like this, students of Fall River are placed in a disadvantage compared to other students throughout Massachusetts? Should being in Fall River be the reason we have a lesser quality education? Now, I'd like to shift the conversation towards teachers. Teacher shortage has to do with the fact that teachers are leaving. Some of the things I see as a student is a lack of teacher appreciation, fair wages, and respect. Teachers do more than just educate. They nurture, they advise clubs, they write recommendation letters, and they can become your best friends. I never understood why they have the wage they do. Good wages attract good teachers. In my span of being a student at Durfee High School, I've witnessed 4 teachers leave Durfee. And it's not because they don't like teaching, but because they found a place where they can get more money right down the block. Should this be what we want for students and teachers? Thank you.
A quick Google search of jobs for the Fall River Public Schools generated a list of 87 positions, including classroom paraprofessionals, administrative assistants, community facilitators, early college academic specialists, social emotional learning liaisons, cosmetology teachers, ESL student support specialists, STEM teachers, second grade teachers, special education supervisors, department head guidance, middle school teachers, Spanish teachers, math teachers, and Durfee High School principals and vice principals, and so on and so on.
Hi, my name is Malin Massey, and I'm currently a senior at Durfee High School, and I have lived in Fall River my whole life. Born and raised in Fall River, as my high school career is coming to an end, and I start to think about my future plans outside this small city, I have had my major ups and downs, leading me to the path of learning several valuable lessons. For example, accepting that failing is okay as long as you pick yourself back up, or that mental health days are needed, are 2 important things I have learned. As a full-time student that is very involved and always packing my schedule to run away from my mental health, I still struggle every day to tell myself, you deserve this, but slow down. For many people, mental health is not taken seriously. I really do believe it plays a huge factor in each and every person's life, whether you are a full-time student or a full-time worker. Approximately 1 in 5 teens ages from 12 to 18 suffer from at least one mental health disorder. Mental illnesses have increased about 28% in 2023 alone. For the students that find trouble in keeping themselves motivated, they may feel as if they don't get as much support because that is how I felt. In my experiences, I struggled a lot with attendance the last 2 years of high school, and I would totally blame COVID, but at the end of the day, it was me who makes the final decision. I started my first day of freshman year on a computer screen. How easy it was for someone to sleep in and forget about the tiny Chromebook right beside them. Little did freshman me understand at the time that my action of brushing aside the motivation to do school electronically would lead to something so big. My biggest mental health battle was COVID year, and really the root of my struggle with showing up in general. The support from my parents at that point in time was at an all-time minimum. To most people, the most important thing in life is family. I have always been independent, whether that was learning how to get a job or making my own dinner. I am the only girl of 3 brothers, second oldest, and I have a mind of my own. My brothers and I were all involved in sports, but I didn't like it as much, so my parents never really got to understand what I actually loved, so the support wasn't there at most times. However, the support from my guidance counselor that I only met once in person with a mask on, and the rest of our communication through email, Miss Bethany Guimon, my biggest supporter and motivation in human form, really cared about me. I realized that at least one person cared about what I wasn't doing. It made me upset at myself because I was always a good student, but once you're in that lazy state of mind, it's really hard to get out of. After a very rough freshman year, switching between remote and physical, it was my first time ever being told that I had to go to summer school. Being very disappointed in myself, I decided to deal with my consequences and at least show up to what was my second chance. Not many students see summer school as a second chance. I passed my freshman year through summer school and moved on to what I didn't know at the time would be my sophomore slump. My sophomore year was really when I started to believe my life had a dark cloud over it. When I say dark cloud, I mean I wasn't not feeling motivated and I was lost. During COVID, I spent a lot of time with my aunts and uncles up in Boston where they lived. They really helped me learn how to deal with my mental and emotional issues by taking walks and exploring new things. However, coming home to Fall River made me more and more depressed each time because I was unmotivated to take walks alone to get away from my thoughts. After tons of self-care and connecting with myself, junior year came around, and not wanting but needing change, I decided no matter what comes my way, mentally, emotionally, and physically, it was not going to stop me from doing what I wanted to do. My career choice since 8th grade has always been marketing, so I decided to go against my parents suggesting I go to Diamond and instead enroll at Durfee High School for the Marketing, Career, and Technical Educational Program. This program has saved my life and changed it for nothing but the better. Mr. John O'Connor, Miss Ariel St. Germain, Miss Melissa St. Pierre, and Miss Cindy Sylvia, as well as my friends, have played tremendous roles in my life that I cannot be more thankful and grateful for. It's teachers like these amazing people that want to keep me in school and continue to do what I love to do. After being in school for so long, you can really tell the difference between teachers that actually love their job and students more than those that just don't. It took a lot of time for me to realize my teachers always cared about me and were always there for me if I needed help, as well as my friends who noticed me and not as my usual self. Even though I learned a lot of lessons from both good and bad, I hope to want to continue being motivated to go to school. Thank you.
Nationally, only 28.3% of ninth grade students reported feeling adults in their school care about their learning and about them as individuals. Why is this important? Students who feel connected to their school feel safe, happy, and fairly treated. These youth are more likely to earn higher grades and test scores, have better attendance, and stay in school longer. A sense of belonging in their school environment is also associated with avoidance of risky behaviors, including early sexual activity, alcohol and drug use, and violence and gang involvement.
Hello, I'm Jasmine DeSoto, and I've lived in Fall River for about 7 years. I moved here originally at the age of 11, and at the age of 12, it was my very first year in Fall River. I remember walking to school down the road from my home and getting catcalled by old Portuguese men standing outside their home. I've never felt more uncomfortable in my school uniform. That was the last year I wore skirts for the fear of harassment turning physical. But then I discovered the Portuguese bakery next to my school, and I fell in love with it. I remember going there every single morning and getting treats. I also fell in reading at this time. I picked up the right book at the book fair and fell in love with it. My teachers, Miss Shea and Miss Blanchard, realized my love of reading and gave me book recommendations and introduced me to poetry. Miss Blanchard gave me the sequel of one of my favorite books, Milk and Honey. I still have it 6 years later. These teachers have left an impact I've never seen before Fall River. At the age of 13, this is the year I started hanging out with my friends outside of school. We would go down the road to Kennedy Park. I understood by this part that Fall River was considered the hood or the ghetto, but I didn't fully understand it until I was at the park with my friends when I heard the gunshots coming from near the basketball courts. I proceeded to run to my friend's house in fear. When I got home that day, I didn't tell my family what happened or of the fear of not being allowed to go outside my house anymore. This is also the year that somebody offered me drugs at that same park. This is the year I also went to the Portuguese Fest, and I was amazed about how much life and culture there was in Fall River. It was such a beautiful event, and I've never seen it before. That was just the beginning of me living in Fall River. The other 4 years have been so difficult to speak. Fall River is beyond complex with deep rich history, but still has its ugly parts. Something currently affecting me personally would be the easy access to drugs, as I have been exposed from a young age, and I've seen how it's affected classmates, friends, and just people in my life. Girls I used to play with, dolls with, and make slime with are now doing drugs like cocaine and Molly. 17-year-old girls should not have access to hard drugs. This issue is so big and concerning, though not many people talk about this subject. There's just such big norm in Fall River High School, especially in Durfee, that drugs are cool and that they make you popular and well-liked. But in reality, we don't understand the consequences of them. The public system has failed us in our education about drugs and drug misuse. We had DARE, which was a nationwide failure, and it adequately informed us about how drastic the effects of drugs on our physical and mental state are. I have learned more about substances in my AP psychology class than I've ever had in health at Durfee. This is a silent issue many people don't want to talk about or even admit that it's happening, especially in our city. But I've noticed kids that have walked past me who have puncture wounds all over their arm, and a girl in homeroom who has deep bags and can't keep up, halfway awake through her day. In the United States, over 600,000 teenagers aged 12 to 17 used illicit drugs other than marijuana in the last month. Especially in a city like Fall River, where the legal marijuana industry is booming, where many residents' income is well below the average for the state, and addiction rate goes hand in hand with poverty. This community is at greater risk of addiction in general, especially for myself and my peers. As my fellow speaker Faith mentioned, and she talked about how kids are becoming so stressed that they turn to substances. It is not just stressed students who are likely to turn to drugs, but also teens who struggle with mental illness or kids whose family members struggle with addiction. They are all more at risk to becoming addicted to drugs, given the common factors of low income and the constant exposure of drugs in this city. The ease that myself and my peers can access drugs is disheartening. So what do we do? Where do we go from here? This is such a complex issue with complex solution. By my opinion, the best place to start is with education, around drug use and prevention without pulling the punches. If we're going to take this issue seriously, we have to attack it seriously. Focusing on basic absences, for example, has not seemed to work. I think we are better served by showing the stark realities and dangers of substance use and abuse and how it has affected our populations. So how are you going to make a better future a reality in Fall River?
The YRBS asks, during the past 30 days, how many days did you carry a weapon, such as a gun, knife, or club? 7.3% reported carrying more than twice.
13% reported being in a physical fight at least once this year.
13% reported being bullied on school property.
What we must do now is enact change, because that is what we do to things that fail. We change them. Quoted from Florence Sheard, a Parkland school shooting survivor.
Young people are not the future. We are the present, and we must create the world in which we want to live. Quoted by Valeria, 17, from Ukraine.
Good evening. My name is Adun Olubanwa. I'm a senior at Durfee High School, and I have lived in Fall River all my life. Tonight, I want to talk about racism in schools. Racism, according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is the belief that race determines a person's traits and capacities. Additionally, racism is defined as the behaviors and attitudes that reflect this belief. Such a description might make the idea sound like it should be obvious, like bigotry would stick out in a crowd, like racial bias must be as clear as day, like you couldn't possibly miss discrimination if it was standing right in front of you. But I've learned that things like these are never just black or white. Take my 7th grade gym class, for example. Like every other class, the year was split up into units. In gym specifically, a sport was assigned to each unit. The sport assigned to this unit just so happened to be basketball. So, like the other units, I played the sport alongside the other kids in my class. However, even though the whole class would play, I would always find myself singled out. If I didn't play well, aren't you meant to be good at this? If I did play well, of course she'd be good at this. They said they were joking, but I could never fully believe them. Jokes were supposed to be funny, and no matter how hard I tried, I could never truly laugh. Like most people of color, I have the tendency to change my hair. Whether braids, twists, wigs, or cornrows, we are always wearing something new. And similar to most, when your hair changes, people comment. However, instead of responses like, "I like your hair," or "it looks nice," we're often faced with similes. In other words, it looks likes. I remember one day in 6th grade when I was wearing my afro in math class, and the person across from me felt the need to comment. "Adun, your hair looks like broccoli today." She, along with the rest of the table, laughed and proceeded to inform the class of her humor. A joke where, once again, I was unable to laugh. A new addition to a larger wound, one that has yet to heal to this day. I now understand these events to be microaggressions. As defined by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, microaggressions are comments or actions that subtly and often unconsciously express a prejudiced attitude toward a member of a marginalized group. You see, my experience with racism never felt like kicks or threats or blatant acts of malice, but pokes and prods, the type of thing you can hide under the guise of a joke or playfulness. Like those little cuts you don't pay much attention to until they start bleeding, and the blood won't stop. My teachers didn't respond. At first, I thought they just didn't know. But I soon realized my aggressors were loud enough to be heard. My teachers simply would not act. "Be good," she would tell them. "You're disrupting the class." No one saw it as a problem, and for the longest time, this confused me. With how persistent and normalized these events were, I never felt right defining my experience as bullying. In health class, or those anti-bullying presentations they made us watch, it was always explicit. Bullying was being pushed against a locker, or getting made fun of online, or slurs and other terrible things being thrown at you in the hallway. Obvious. I only realized the severity of my experience after telling my story. Recounting my experience piece by piece to a close friend, while seeing her reaction to each one made me realize that what I went through was in fact a problem, and that though it can be obscure at times, bullying is still bullying. Despite my personal realization, however, there are so many kids in our schools who've had and are having similar experiences. Even if they did recognize it as racism before I did, I know of various people, including my own siblings, that are still left defenseless against these acts of discrimination and microaggressions. And so I propose a solution. The Fall River Schools teacher staff, administrators, guidance counselors, and support staff need to be trained in the ways of being anti-racist. Granted, there is some training in place, but clearly this education needs to be addressed in a more practical and sincere manner, not simply a drill to tick off a box. Yes, this training might be difficult or uncomfortable, but it is only through a higher level knowledge of racism that we begin to see better understanding and greater action. It is not enough to be non-racist. You need to be anti-racist, behaving in a way that lets others know that racism and bullying will not be tolerated, even through silence. I don't think my teachers were intentional in their ignorance to my pain. Outside of those experiences, they were almost always amazing, and I'm positive I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for them. However, they weren't aware because a lot of them, to be blunt, don't look like me. Since most of the faculty within our schools are not BIPOC, in other words, Black, Indigenous people of color, they do not understand the nuance of what it is like to be a person of color in the United States. As you can see, it's not just about police brutality and racial profiling, as news anchors love to spotlight, but the little ways that every day my people are made to feel less than for the skin they were born in. And considering the fact that the majority of our educators in the Fall River Public Schools are white, our teachers can't inherently understand that. Educators need to be taught how to identify and address microaggressions. They need training, specific training to put an end to microaggressive behavior. I tell this story tonight because I believe that this effort to inform starts with the school committee. I look at the school committee, the people in power who have the ability to change the trajectory of our K-12 education experience, and most of them don't look like me or reflect the experiences and the challenges that people like me face daily. Almost none of them can understand mine or the diversity of the people I know. Though I know that the type of people who run can't be helped, Representation of diversity in our student body cannot be sacrificed in committee decisions. You can't work for the whole if your decisions are made in the context of the half. I urge the committee to establish a commission of representatives, whether elected or otherwise, dedicated to representing the BIPOC experience in the school committee and making the minority voice heard. During those years, I felt so powerless. I felt like I woke up every day walking into a battle that I knew I could never win. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to see my aggressors. I didn't want to be harassed again and again for the parts of my being that I can't control, but I had to. I had to function in that space. I had to excel in that space. I had to laugh as if it was okay, and fight back when I could no longer act with no one but the Lord on my side. No one should have to face what I did. No one should be less valued, less understood, less protected, less loved because of their skin color. I urge you to act. I plead that you move so that all kids like me can feel valued in their schools, so that all kids like me no longer have to bleed. Thank you.
Yolanda Renee King, granddaughter of Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King, once said, "My grandfather had a dream that his children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream that enough is enough."
Thank you. To all the panelists, you are amazing. Thank you so much for being so brave. You touched my heart, and I know you touched the hearts of the people you're speaking to. Giving youth a voice means not only granting them opportunities to speak, but more important, making sure they are being listened to and truly heard. They need to know, these kids need to know, that the words they just put out there have impact on you. So to show them that, we're going to give you an opportunity to come up to the podium and make a 1-minute pledge to the students in this room as to what you are going to do as an elected official to improve their life in Fall River. We have all your names in a basket, and Eva and Caleb will draw them. You'll come to the podium. We will put a timer on, and you will have 1 minute. And when the timer rings, we will shut you down. This is not the Republican debate, okay? You get closed down at 1 minute. So please think a minute what you want to say and get to the point, because 1 minute goes really quickly. So we'll mix up the names, and Eva, why don't you pull the first person?
Sure. Laura Washington.
I feel special. Good. So I have been lucky enough to be on for 15 months on the city council, and I promise just to continue to do what I did. My first initiative was to pass a $2 million, or put in a resolution for $2 million for young people to be able to do extracurricular activities in Fall River, boxing, dance, jiu-jitsu, arts, all of that. And so that is, I understand that investing in our youth is fundamental, and community connectedness is fundamental to young people. So my commitment is to continue to do what I do, and my first initiative is to invest in our youth, and I will continue to do so if I'm lucky enough to get back on the city council. Thank you.
Alrighty, next up we have Gloria Sadler. Sadler, sorry.
Hi. If elected city council, I would seek a resolution and a collaborative working relationship with the Fall River Public Schools to create a working relationship with Bristol Community College to send in adjunct faculty to work with the AP students, because at no time should there have been a cancellation of classes when we have Bristol Community College across the street, and a working contract, a collaboration with an adjunct faculty versus a substitute. I'm not interested in having a substitute come in. I'm looking for an adjunct faculty, which is the equivalent, if not better, than the APs that walked away from their responsibilities.
Kevin Aguiar.
Thank you. I have a lot to say relative to what we heard. But one of the things that is a theme that ran through everything that was said was that we can't accept mediocrity. And as an elected official, we cannot sit by and just listen as things go on and we know that they're not right. And we just let the same thing happen over and over and over. What some of the things that you said really bothered me. It should bother every elected official. But too often, what we do is put blind eyes on and say, nothing's happening that's wrong. We need to own it, and we need to fix it. And we need to raise the expectations of the administrators that are working in this school department. If you watch meetings, you'll see a lot of votes that come up. And I'm not afraid to pass and be the only one voting no or holding people accountable. What we need is more of that. We need to open the lines of communication, so as these things were going on, if the school committee knew about it, we can hold the administration accountable. So a lot of the things that you said should not have happened, and it won't happen going forward, and I'm going to push for it.
Sarah Rodericks.
I have a little one that won't leave my side, so that's where we're at. And Wendy, that shouldn't count as my time. So first off, your vulnerability here tonight is a tremendous strength. And my wish for you is that you use that to continue that pursuit in social and civic engagement. So this is the work that I do every single day. I'm a therapist, I'm a social worker, I'm a nonprofit, I do all that kind of stuff. So my job, though, as an elected official is to make sure that we're pushing for the policies and procedures that support the programs that you need. And that looks like anti-racist, anti-oppressive, stigma-reducing supports and resources to make sure that you have what you need in the building and out in the community. So one of the things that I heard loud and clear is that we have mental health issues, we have oppressive, racist issues that are going on in the buildings, and so I would fully support the creation of a committee that looks at our BIPOC, LGBTQ, disabled and otherwise marginalized groups to be able to bring people together to problem solve and look at what we can do directly in the school building that can support you day to day. Because if it's not happening there, we're not going to be able to do it out in the community, right? So we've got to be able to do both. So it takes one caring adult to make a difference, and as a social worker, as a mom, it's my job to make sure that I'm available to do that for you guys. And I'm done.
C. Samuel Sutter. Sutter, sorry.
Thank you. I'm Sam Sutter, and I'm running for mayor, and I want to begin by saying that I was going to say something, but after listening to your remarks, I'm going to say something different. So every single one of you said something so original, so deep, so thoughtful, so moving. I was absolutely blown away. But I think the two most, for me, piercing things that I heard, because obviously it's hard for me to relate to racism the way that those who are of color can. But I did hear two things, and I will make my pledge to you that we will do much better on these two issues if I'm mayor. One is teen suicide ideation, which of course leads to suicide. Unacceptable that there's as if any, but we've got to do better in that regard. And the other is drug overdose, use of hard drugs, which will lead to drug overdoses. So those two issues, one of you talked about drug education. I think we can do much better with that, and I think we can do much better with mental health services for those who are having teen suicide ideation. All of you, though, so piercing in what you said, such a testament to you. Stay the course, be tough inside, and you will have bright futures. Thank you.
Oh wait, that's me, I'm sorry. My bad. Charles Chase Jr.
Thank you for opening some of my newer eyes. This has been enlightening, but there are a few things I just want to bring across. The human brain at 22 to 26 becomes mature. It's fully functional. This is what you should be looking at as a goal. Think of opportunities rather than problems when you have what is now called a problem. I will be fighting against the administration, the state, and the federal government in the way they are carrying out education and protecting people like you. I will fight for the family, that the family stays as a whole unit. And if, as the state says, there are problems with certain families, then they have to be trained somehow by the government. That's a big goal of the government that they should have. But
A minute is
God
over, I'm
bless you
sorry.
all.
There you go.
Joshua Texera, unfortunately, he couldn't make it, and he is an RSVP.
But unfortunately, he could not make it. Pick another.
Michelle Dion.
Good evening. Michelle Dion, City Councilor, hoping for re-election. I'm going to start with my pledge. My pledge is I'm only a phone call away. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you. We can't help you if we don't know what's wrong. As I said, I'm a phone call away. You can come to the City Council. We can have discussions on the floor. We can make the community aware of what's happening and try to work on it from that angle. Make things more public, put pressure on people, and try to help you. I tip my hat to all of you, and I suspect that some of you, as you get older, are going to become less stressed because some of you have workloads that are 3 times the size of a lot of adults I know. So I think you're going to de-stress as time goes on if you can handle what you're handling at this age. None of you should have ever felt the pressures that you felt, the racism that you felt. That isn't the way we should bring up our youth. Thank you.
Next up, we have Jordan Sylvia.
Thank you. So I came to an event just like this probably 10 years ago when I first started running for office. It was kids that looked just like all of you, said the exact same problems, right, with drugs, racism, violence. I went to almost every school in Fall River when I was born into Maple Gardens, right, as a kid, and I experienced all the same problems 30 years ago. So we're not gonna fix drugs. They're never gonna be taken away out of society. That's the reality. People, like we talk about, people don't want to say the truth. That's the truth. So my approach, personally in my life, I've had many friends die from drugs and poverty and all this stuff. No one's gonna help you, right? No one's gonna fix you. You have to do that. That's the reality. You have to do it yourself. The good news is you can do that, right? And adversity is gonna make you go one of 2 ways. It's gonna let you break you down, or you're gonna rise above, and now nothing can bother you because of the things you went through as a kid. That's what happened in my life, personally. One thing I'm gonna do is introduce
That's your
financial
time,
literacy
Mr. Sylvia, that's
into
your
the
time.
school
Thank you.
department. Okay, guys? Thank you.
Sometimes it's
Alex and Tony Casino. Thank you.
Gabriel Amaral never responded to our invite. Alexander Silva.
Oh, he's ready.
Hello, thank you. There are many important actions candidates can focus on to support the city's youth, from teacher retention to extracurricular activities. However, the one commitment I want to make to you all is that I will do everything I can to make Fall River the best place it can be, so the city's youth know that they have the potential and the opportunity to do whatever they want in life. When I graduated from Durfee and went to college, I, like many of my peers, couldn't wait to get out of Fall River. For much of our lives, we were surrounded by people putting the city down and telling us that the only way to make it or make anything of ourselves was to get out of here, to escape. But that's not true, and I want all of you to realize that. Fall River is not a ball and chain dragging your future down. If anything, history shows us that this city creates hardworking and resilient people who are capable of amazing things. I promise to focus long-term planning efforts in Fall River on creating the vibrant city many of us know it can be, with good jobs, great shops, tons of things to do, beautiful parks, trails, a waterfront, and more. I want to transform this city into a place Fall River's younger generation are proud to call home, so you can all aim high and dream big.
All right, next up we have Shelly Ann Pereira.
Hello. You guys did so amazing. You really are. I sit here and it's inspirational. And you know, when you talk about wanting diversity up here in your elected officials, you got to get people to run and take part in the civic process. And I look up on stage and I feel really good about the future of Fall River. Some of the things I heard, we talked about de-stressing. I personally think, I've heard some stories from students that maybe the extracurricular activities are difficult in terms of finances or transportation. So I'd like to look and see if transportation is an issue, how we can make that happen. Because I know personally my therapy is listening to music and photography, and that could be something that could help distress. I have to say, it saddens me to hear some of the things I heard tonight. And like my colleague said, we don't know these things. So I want you to know that I'm currently on the school committee, so that means I currently work for you.
Unfortunately, Joseph Salvador never responded to the invite, but we're going to continue on and announce Cliff Pont.
My pledge to you, if fortunate enough to get back to the City Council, is to utilize the City Council subcommittee, very similar to what the school committee has done in prior years, to have a representative from Durfee sit at a City Council school committee meeting and voice their concerns and give a report. The Fall River City Council has a subcommittee called Youth and Elder Affairs, and I think if we could have a representative when that committee meets, as often as it does, whenever it does, to have a report come from somebody in youth at Durfee or any school to raise the concerns that you hear and that you see every single day, so that they can make a better difference in the community. And one thing I want to take away from this is this: if people don't realize how powerful the words that you say tonight, don't recognize that we have flaws and we need to get better, every elected official and every candidate running needs to look at themselves in the mirror, because we need to do better, and you deserve better than what you're currently doing. Thank you so much.
Sean Kadim, he never responded to our invite. Ricky Tees RSVP'd but couldn't make it. Joseph Camara never responded to our invite. Linda Pereira RSVP, but unfortunately couldn't make it.
And then, unfortunately, Bradford Kilby could not make it tonight. Paul, he's coming? Oh. We have Paul Hart, who did RSVP, but unfortunately could not make it. Let's see who could make it. Thomas Cowery. Corey, sorry.
You're doing great, guys.
Hey, kids. So I grew up in Fall River. I was educated in Fall River schools. I taught social studies here at Durfee High School. Then I became an adjustment counselor. And as an adjustment counselor, I ran 2 award-winning programs to address racism in our cultures, One Earth, One People Under the Sun, and that was running the United Cultures Club here at Durfee. And then again to address violence and mental health with Peaceful Coalition. I'm on your side. I'm running for school committee, and I propose that we have delegates to the school committee in regular committee sessions. I will work to form that and organize that with you. That's my pledge. I'll stay side by side with all of the issues that you raised tonight. Thank you very much.
Bobby Bailey.
First off, I want to tell you guys you're all brave. I wouldn't have been able to do this at your age. I share a similar story. I graduated from Durfee with like a 0.6 GPA, graduated from my grad program with a 3.7, so I share this similar stories. From what I heard from you guys, there's lack of commitment, communication, consistency, understanding, and relatability in some of the people that you're looking at, right? Some of your role models, influence. I pledge that I listen more, that I speak up. I think I've spent my first term the quiet guy on the side. I think I need to speak up. You guys are a constant reminder why I ran. I ran because I was a kid that sat in the same seat as you guys, and I pledged when I moved back to this city that I would make an impact. So I pledge that I'm gonna listen. We're gonna dive deeper, use our resources, and make sure we solve some of these problems that you're dealing with, because you shouldn't have to deal with them. And something that really stood out is that we are the now. You guys are the now. You're a direct impact of this city. You know, you guys have a bright future ahead. But thank you guys for having me.
Next up, we have Mayor Paul Coogan.
First of all, I want to compliment all my friends on the panel. You guys did a great job tonight, and those were very key issues to the city, to the state, and to the country, so you didn't shy away from anything. I pledged to be accessible. When I became elected mayor, I never stopped visiting the schools, I never stopped being in the parks, and I never stopped being out and about. I was at Morton this morning, I've been in the charter schools, and I continue to listen to kids. I take back a piece of what you say, and the things we can control, we're trying to control. You noticed an increase in our adjustment counselors, our guidance counselors, our support people. That's an outcry from what we've heard at this panel in the past. And I pledge to continue to listen, go forward with your ideas, and make the schools a better, safer place for everybody. Thank you very much, guys.
Michelle Larrabee.
Mimi.
That's how you're on the ballot, Mimi.
What is it?
That's how you're on the ballot.
No, I'm not.
That's what Marsha
So
says.
that doesn't count, right?
No, I didn't start yet. Ready?
So, first of all, impressive. Thank you for your transparency, your honesty, your bravery, and I can't wait to meet every single one of you one-on-one, except for one of you, I won't say which one I already know really well. But if I get elected, right, it's not going to change who I am, okay? I've been advocating for youth my entire career. I've been doing it for 35 years, and I continue to have the passion for every single one of you sitting up there, okay, and the issues that you're trying to overcome every single day. So, I mean, I could say if I'm elected, I'm going to do this, or if I'm going to do the same thing. But if I am elected, I'm going to have the eyes on the other side as well. And I can advocate in a different way, and that's on the school committee. So again, my heart goes out to all of you.
I'm sorry, but the time is over.
Thank you.
Colin Diaz.
Thank you to everyone who spoke today. I'm just going to go right to my pledge. Mental health advocacy is very important to myself. I'm someone who deals with symptoms of anxiety, panic on a weekly basis. We need to do a lot more in the school district when it comes to mental health. One thing I want to advocate for, I want to fight for, something that helps me, we need a meditation room in every single school, somewhere we can go, sit down, listen to music, get a quiet place to get away from things. That should be cheap. We already have plenty of rooms. Let's put a room in every single every single school in the school district so we can get a place so we can get away from everything. Thank you.
Andrew Raposo.
I have a cheerleader, apparently. It's so important to not forget the human element of this. And it's so impressive that all of you are here today and saying what you're saying. And one thing that I truly understand, and through the pandemic, I suffered very much like all of you suffered in that mental health problem. So 2 things I'm going to tell you. Being a model for the community, promoting positivity, being someone that you can be looked up to as an elected official to reflect back into the community. And number 2, I am the chairman of Youth and Elder Affairs of the City Council, and I will tell you, you always have a seat at that table, anytime. Thank you.
Bob Pearson.
Thank you and congratulations. As you know it or not, you have conquered the #1 fear in America, and that is public speaking. Congratulations. My plan and my pledge to you would be, years ago we had a program initiated through the Sheriff's Department by the school committee. It was called Scared Straight. We probably need to change that title. However, those people who are creating all the violence in the schools need to get on a bus by the school committee or by the city council and go through our jail system and see what that's like. I can tell you, I worked there for 5 years. I was scared straight. It's not an easy job, but I think the students, whether you volunteer or are mandated, I don't care which, need to get on a bus just like that and see what it's like. That would scare you straight. I thank you.
Last but not least.
Paulo Emerald.
Thank you for inviting me here today. First of all, I want to praise you for how aware, independent, and the level of maturity that you have. At your age, I could never do any of this. A lot of what you said here today resonated with me. I immigrated to this country at the age of 9, and there was a lack of resources then. I remember my parents dropping me off at Cuss at 6 in the morning. We had no literature, we didn't know what was going on, and I was the only person there in the dark, didn't know how to speak English, with nobody to help. So I understand. I understand what it's like to come here and face prejudice, to be marginalized, for people to tell you to go back to your country. And it just saddens me that the lack of resources then still resonate today. And I'm here and I'll pledge to listen to you, to fight for community services for you, and to empower you. At the end of the day, you guys are very brave for what you did, and I think you're all on your way to becoming successful. A lot more than I was at your age. And for that, I thank you. And just continue to do your thing, and I'll continue to support you.
So I don't want you to think that the words as candidates that you've said are only contained in this room. If you notice, Marsha Picard from Partners for a Healthier Community, raise your hand, Marsha, has been scribing every promise that you've made. And on Inauguration Day, she will put them in an envelope and she will send it to you to remind you, as you are assuming new responsibilities, the pledge you made to not not just these young people and the young people in the room, but all the young people in Fall River. We could not be prouder of you for standing up and speaking out, because that's when change happens. Decisions are made by the people that show up. And not only have you showed up for Fall River and for Fall River schools, but you've showed up for yourselves. And that makes me feel that there's a good future here. I don't want to hear that we've had these problems for 50 years and they're never going to go away, because I've seen change, even in the short time that I've been here. And I know that all of you are going to bring about change. One of my favorite philosophers says, "You are not required to complete the work, nor are you free to desist from it. But if not now, when?" Thank you so much for coming. We'll see you on Election Day. You were wonderful. From it.
Youth and Candidate Night, let us carry forth the essence of unity, inspiration, and the promise of a brighter future. Tonight, we've witnessed the power of dreams woven into the fabric of determination. Each youth symbolizes a story of resilience, growth, and the unwavering spirit to make a difference. As we applaud their endeavors, let's remember that this is not the final point, but a stepping stone towards greater heights. I'm Ishal Zahra, a 17-year-old senior at Durfee High School, actively engaged in National Honor Society, Skills USA, and Career and Technical Education Leadership Advisory Council. The narratives shared tonight about growing up in Fall River in 2023 touched on mental well-being, substance abuse, racism, and the need for better opportunities for both youth and teachers. These are just a sample of the challenges that we are facing growing up. We're trying our best, but some obstacles persist. We want and need help. We're provided with the organizations and initiatives in the city that can make a difference in my life and the lives of my peers. We do not have these resources available to all youth that need them. To the caring adults present, not just the candidates, we request more conversations about issues that are important to us. Increased investments in programming for our future, new opportunities for maintaining mental well-being, additional support for teachers and educational attainment, and a deeper commitment to creating an inclusive environment that empowers every voice and dream. To the youth gathered here, you are the architects of tomorrow. Your passion, creativity, and commitment are the building blocks for positive change. Embrace challenges with courage, for it's through adversity that we discover our true potential. To the candidates, you stand on the brink of new beginnings. Carry the torch of knowledge, compassion, and leadership into the future. Your journey has just begun, and we eagerly anticipate the impact you will make. In closing, let's unite to make Fall River better, not just for today, but for our future, Fall River's future. The curtain falls on this chapter, but the stage is set for an encore of remarkable achievements. Thank you all for being part of this inspiring evening.
Now we'll have the opportunity, if anybody has any questions that you would like to ask the youth, let's be sensitive to the fact that they're going to answer questions about what they wrote about, not about anything you feel like asking, okay? So anybody have some questions? Bobby, go ahead. Why don't you go right up to the microphone? So if you have a question, go stand by the microphone, then everyone will be able to hear you.
Faith?
Yes.
Okay, so with the pressures of society and with everything going on with your age group, what are some alternatives that adults can do to kind of help you guys to support you on your journey, whether it's in school or out of school? And what are some of the ways that we can get more adults in the city to listen? Because I think You guys had a very, very powerful voice tonight, but how do we make sure that we're all taking that into account and we can make sure that all of the adults in the city are listening and start catering towards you guys?
I think it is, kids talk about it a lot. We say we're stressed, but adults seem to know it but not say it directly. So it seems like almost like talking to a wall. And of course, this isn't all adults. Like my guidance counselor, she's very understanding. But I think adults should almost be a student for a day and like live in the life of a student to see that it's not only that adults that are pressuring us, but also like students, because college nowadays, it's you have to be able to do 28 hours worth of stuff within 24 hours. So I just think that adults really need to know what our life is like every single day. Instead of saying, oh, when I was in school, it was like this. You're not in school anymore. You need to understand what it's like to be in school now. I hope that answered it.
Thank you, Faith. Is there
Thank you.
anyone else? Any of you want to respond
I
to
can
what
add
Bobby
on.
asked?
So obviously Faith listed everything that she does. I'm also president of couple clubs too. So like I mentioned in my story that my parents' support was at an all-time minimum. Basically when I say that is because when my brothers were in sports, it's a way easier option to get into college. And I'm choosing the marketing route, so it's gonna be a lot of finance, advertising, a bunch of different topics going into business that I'm learning. On top of trying to be able to lead these clubs and then being in school for so many hours and trying to go to all these events and making sure I'm keeping up with the teachers, even though we're literally just 17-year-old girls. And again, I don't know if Faith wants me to say this, but like we're close friends and her parents aren't really there for her either. So trying to take the support from each other is really hard when you know people aren't there, knowing what you're going through, knowing how to give the support, knowing how to talk to you rather than saying, oh, I went to school back then, it shouldn't be this hard. Like even when I have a hard time getting up and I go to school late, my dad will say, oh, what's so hard about your day, like your school day? Like all you do is go to your core classes. But my dad's very big on AP courses. He's very big on my clubs. And my parents didn't know that I was a president of DECA, if you guys know what that is. It's a business club. They didn't know for a while. And it's like, I have nothing against them. I'd rather them be focused on their own lives, you know? But again, staying on the topic, I feel like as adults, you learn that you need to put yourself in others' shoes. At least that's what I learned at a very young age. So if you guys can just put yourself in our shoes and look at the school curriculum now, especially being on the school committee, if you just, even like emotionally and physically, like it's a really hard on teenage brains, I guess I would say.
I hear an interesting challenge here for school committee members to spend a day, an entire day, with one of these students in school, going to all their classes, going to lunch, study hall, their after-school clubs, and see what it's like. They've laid down the challenge. We'll see who will pick it up. Dr. Rodricks, you have a question.
I think it's Olivia that has more questions. No. Okay, so I'm told I'm wrong all the time. So to kind of piggyback on what Bobby was asking, many of you talked about mental health supports, many of you talked about facing stigma and discrimination and racism in your buildings. Are there current supports and resources that you feel are actually helpful to you in your building and in the community? And if there are some, what are they? And can you think of other things, other supports and resources that would be helpful to you to manage some of these issues?
Can I answer this question?
Go right ahead, Rachel.
So like some of my favorite teachers and my guidance counselors, like my guidance counselor, she has just like this box of fidget toys and this box of candy. And I literally was so pleased to just like take a couple from those boxes. Like it really made me feel like I was a kid again. Like just those things brought me so much joy. And I also like the idea, I heard it from someone, about having like a room that you can go to just relax. Like sometimes, like when I feel like upset or just moody in class, like I just want to go away, just like lay down. Because like after a bit, I'll feel better. Like, you know, it's easier to do that when you're alone as opposed to like a lot of things happening around you in class. So definitely like candy and fidget toys, yeah. So just private rooms, yeah.
I'm writing down snacks.
Caleb, I think, is going to respond. Go ahead.
So I was going to say, majority of the resources that we have here at Durfee are more college-based and focused. Therefore, like I'm involved in a TRIO Upward Bound program, talent search, and a variety of other things that help me to prepare me for college. But in the aspect more so basing off like the stress, the mental health of it, there's a very big lack in there. So I feel like our resources, where they're geared, it's not towards what needs to be identified.
I would say for the racism aspect, or like in terms of race, I don't feel like that I can like mention anything that is really a resource that I can go to like kind of talk about that or address it. Because even in terms of certain things that have happened in certain instances that have even happened to me, because I was talking about my middle school experience, but even if I'm talking about my high school experience, there are certain instances where I have either heard of or experienced acts of blatant racism, and specific people who have done those things or talked of those things, and the most I know that they have gotten is like a suspension or things like that. So, and even when I talk to my teachers about these things, like how can we act on this? This person shouldn't be able to do this thing, right? I noticed that it's kind of like the way that the system, or not the system, but I guess the way that our school is run, or the rules that we have, where they're not able to act on it. And it's kind of set in a way that they're not able to act. And so I feel like in terms of racism, there's not really anything I can go to or anyone I can go to, which is why I started the POC Unity Club in our school, People of Color Unity Club, because I felt like we didn't have a safe space, and so I wanted to create one. And so me, along with my co-president, created something like that in order for us to have a safe space, but I had to do that myself. So I feel like there are no resources here now for that. So, yeah.
Eva?
Talking about safe spaces, I believe that every student should have a counselor or a teacher that they can be able to talk about, to de-stress about. For me personally, when I'm stressed, I'm in the upward program like Caleb is, and Abby, the counselor there, she was so helpful whenever I had college questions, anything I need to fill out, I go to her classroom. She's a lot of help, and it makes me feel like I'm getting this done, I'm doing it. And it helps me really stress down to have a person that I can talk to, understand, and help me along the way. So I believe if every student had a resource, somebody they can go to, talk to, de-stress, support them, it would really help a lot with stress instead of just keeping it in.
Anybody else want to? Go ahead.
One thing I wanted to say is that while we do have some supports here at our school, and I feel from my experience personally that they are amazing, but it's the adults in our classrooms who are making us feel that if I'm overwhelmed, going to that adjustment counselor to talk makes me seem like I'm weak. And I feel like we need to fix that.
Anyone else want to weigh in on Dr. Sarah's question?
About the racism that we face at Durfee, when we go to look at our staff, we all have houses with our counselors and adjustment counselors. There's no POC there. There's no people of color. None of I have one teacher that is a teacher of color, but we are staffed around white people, and I feel like having more people of color in our classrooms or in our offices is very important to having this safe space. Because yes, I could talk to teachers, and yes, I feel supported by them, but they don't understand our experiences that we are feeling in the very moment.
Can I respond to just one thing? Okay. So you are not weak for seeking support. You are not weak for acknowledging that things are hard and acknowledging that things that need to change, and recognizing that we've got a lot of work to do, right? That's actually a huge sign of strength, and anyone that tells you otherwise is downright wrong. So your vulnerability, your bravery, your courageousness of being able to speak about all of these things that I'm talking to all of you is an incredible strength that most adults do not have, okay? So that was the only thing I wanted to respond to. I took notes on everything everyone said, and I'm gonna take my little one and I'm gonna sit down now.
Thank you. I think Alexander was next.
He gave me I beat him right to the last second.
I think I saw him first, so I
Oh,
think
okay.
Alexander, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, buddy. So real quickly, my name's Jordan James Sylvia. I have been the letter that Christian sent me to come here tonight says that candidates don't speak about the youth. It said rarely, which is true, except for myself. I mention it every time I go speak publicly. I've been the most critical of the school department, right? Education in the country as a whole. So my main criticism is
I think we're waiting for your question
Yep.
for the youth, okay?
Yep.
This isn't a campaign speech.
I understand. I think
We
this-
need your
the-
question.
I know, the school committee woman had the same exact time to ask her question.
We need your question.
Got it. So my question is, my belief is the 13 years that you're in the school doesn't prepare you for the real world, right? So my question is, especially the young lady, you're in the business club, correct?
Yeah.
I'd like to know, in your entire educational experience in Fall River, do you guys have jobs? Are you taught about what you're about to walk into? Because I know you said you're only 17. I joined the military when I was 17. You guys are right on the cusp of being adults. And you're going to walk into this world where everyone in Fall River is complaining they can't afford housing and food because that's just the way, the city is right now. So my question is, how prepared are you? Because again, my main thing is financial literacy, which is non-existent in the city of Fall River, education-wise. So do you feel you could walk in at 17, 18? I had my first apartment at 18. Do you think you're ready to walk into real life adulthood, prepared to earn a living, because you're now going to be responsible for yourself? Just anybody wants to field that.
So, like I said.
I think Eva's going to start here, okay? We'll come to you in a second.
That's
Go ahead.
fine.
I'm sorry if this sounds weird, but I think we should cut short on the question because I'm sure every one of us has a long day and we still have stuff to do outside of school. So if we could just
Want to just skip that question altogether? We'll all go home?
No, I'm just saying, like, keep in mind the time and kind of like compress what you were gonna ask because it's kind of
Sure.
being long. I'm sorry.
You could sum up the answer however you'd like.
Go ahead.
Okay, so like I said, I am in marketing and I run a business club, so obviously I am ready for the real world, as I think, and like my peers that I mentioned, they all know that I do have a job. Majority of us at the table do have a job.
Awesome.
So like Faith mentioned, she has work at 4. She doesn't really have time to get there or eat or sleep. So we are going there mentally drained after being in school for 6 to 7 hours. As well as I pay my own phone bill and my car insurance and car bill. I'm learning that at a young age, and I don't know if anyone else over here pays phone bills or anything, but I feel like we're all pretty prepared for the real world.
Thank you. Alexander? Are you, next question?
Oh, they were raising their
Next-
hands.
no.
3 other people wanted to respond.
Oh, someone wanted to answer? Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll be quick about it. So I'm actually on the opposite end of the spectrum. I want to go back to, I really am very passionate about this teacher shortage problem. So I had the same experience with engineering. So when I went straight into engineering, it was sophomore year, we had the new big building, it was after COVID, and I didn't have a teacher for the first 3 months. We had substitutes. And if you were to ask me, I feel like we have like a great building, we have 3 engineering rooms, we have all these machines, and I feel like I've gotten half of what I should have gotten from it, half of the information from it. I feel like we have all these skills that I feel like I should know, but I don't know, and then I feel dumb when I ask about how to use a
Never
machine.
feel dumb. Never feel dumb.
Yeah, and I actually don't have a job. It's because, I'm already involved with all these extracurriculars. I don't have the time for it. And as part of the engineering program we have here, we're supposed to get internships in our senior year. And because our engineering teacher left last year, that's 2 engineering teachers that left. We didn't have the opportunity to go to competitions or to go to a fair to get internships. So, yeah, that's what.
Thank
I'm
you.
not prepared.
Thank you.
Hey, way to be
Go ahead, Lauren.
fourth row.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate you asking questions, but I feel that your tone this whole time has been very condescending. Like, even with this question, while we were talking about our stress and stuff, the first thing you asked us was, do we have a job? As if our stress already isn't validating, but the thought of us having a job would somehow solidify our idea that we are stressed. And also before, I thought it was very interesting that you wanted to say to us that we as the children are to blame for our what's the word? For
Improving yourself?
no, for our
Personal
fault
development.
of falling into traps that are in our society, like drugs and violence, as if that is our fault. When our cognitive frontal lobe does not develop until we are 25, how is that our fault that we are falling into addictive substances when you are an adult?
I think it's time for a new question. Thank you very much. You can sit down, and we're going to have somebody else come up to ask a question. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your feedback, young lady. Thank you.
Hello, just a quick question kind of related to guidance. Do you feel the Fall River Public School System has helped give you all a path forward for your future? And more importantly, is that even a path that you guys want to follow?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. Do you feel like the school system has helped give you a path forward for your future? Like, kind of helped line up what you want your lives to be like, in terms of guidance and stuff like that?
Sorry,
You can go. You can go first.
Okay.
You got it.
To that question, I'd say not naturally, if that makes sense. So, like, for example, like for us, like I think I can speak for all of us when I say we're like driven students, right? And so we get involved in things and we do things and we advocate for ourselves. But I feel like if we weren't like that, like so many students in our school who, like we've been saying, are just kids, we are kids, are just kids, and they don't advocate for themselves necessarily, or they don't actively try to go the extra mile and be overachievers. And in that sense, I feel like they're not given the opportunity to or set themselves up correctly for the future. I feel like it's not easy, I should say, I guess, for us to set ourselves up well for the future. So I guess that's what I think about that.
Can I add on?
Yeah.
So obviously Durfee, what I said since freshman year was if you aren't going to go out and get it, they're not going to hold your hand. So obviously we have our career and technical educational program where it's a pathway that leads you to your career choice. But obviously you have to show up to those classes, you have to talk to those teachers, get to know everyone in your class, and you have to keep yourself driven and motivated to want to continue and do this career. So,
If I could add on.
Yeah.
So I'm also in the career and technical, and I'm in early ed. I made that decision, I think, like freshman, sophomore year. I'm now a senior. I'm not going into early ed, but I can still use the certifications. But I think, like me personally, my guidance counselor broke down in her office, cried, because I had no clue what I was going to do. I was a junior. And she looked at the class I'd taken, everything I'm involved in, and she's like, why don't you try communications? Why don't you try PR? So that's actually what I'm going into school for. That's what I hope to go to college for. But it's like if I wasn't that vulnerable with her and broke down bawling my eyes out with candy, obviously there was candy involved, then I wouldn't have, like she wouldn't have mentioned that to me. So it's kind of like you need to form this relationship with them. And a lot of students have a difficult time with that, whether their guidance counselor is busy with other things because of like teacher shortage and like taking over like advisory periods because there's not a teacher to be there, or they simply don't speak the same language as the students, because there is a lot of students who speak primarily Spanish, and there is a lot of teachers that do speak Spanish, but it's to the point of how do you know they will? And it's like it should be almost like everybody or close to everybody that speaks Spanish and Portuguese, because those are the languages that many people in the city know. And if they don't speak that language, they can't reach out to parents to let them know, like, hey, your kid is really uncertain of what they want to do, or they're falling behind. So it's just having the guidance counselors know who their students are and how they can help them specifically.
Okay, next question, please. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. My question will be brief. I actually want to follow up on a question that was presented at the last school committee debate. Do you all believe that the school security system, when you walk in the morning, is an invasion on your privacy? And I believe Faith brought up the question at the last meeting. Have you seen any improvements from the last few weeks?
You got that.
Okay, so I go through the north entrance every morning. I'm not gonna say which security guard, but when I walk into school, I feel so unwelcomed. They're so blunt and so angry in the morning. I get they don't want to deal with children, but like that is your job. You're in the school to protect the kids. Why are you making them feel unsafe when they walk in?
And to piggyback on that, there is security guards. Like I've befriended multiple security guards because I've had to go and meet club advisors, and they know my face. But I'm pretty sure we're talking about the same security guard. But there is one security guard. One morning, I was talking to my friend saying how I had a student gov meeting, and he's going through my pencil case. I'm not hiding it. Like he was expecting a pen, a clear pen. You can see what's inside of it. It's ink. It's not a vape. But almost like I've had a pouch that I have personal hygiene products in. Why are you looking through my pouch? Do you need something in there? Like I promise you, like I'm not hiding anything. So it's kind of like knowing the audience and being like, hey, if you see the same kid, their bag is getting, like my bag goes off every single day. I don't know what's in there that's going off. But if you see the same kid that's getting stopped, there might be a reason that it's not a vape. I'm not hiding a vape, I pinky promise. But it might be just something else. So it's kind of like the security officers, they do a lot, and I appreciate them so much, especially, but it's kind of like they seem like they're on different pages of the book, almost. Yeah, okay, all right.
I would also say that because like Faith, I get checked every day, and I also get checked. Usually it's for because I'm in orchestra and I play a violin, so I bring my violin to school, and my violin case always ends up getting checked, and it's like, what am I hiding in my violin case? Do you know what I mean?
Besides the violin.
So I'm just I feel like there's kind of a lack of trust, I guess, because it's like this, and like Faith said, I do appreciate the security guards, but at the same time, sometimes it feels more like they're trying to catch us, I guess, rather than protect us and protect the school. Like there is some hostility there. So.
Go ahead, Jasmine.
I have had stories. A security guard sniffed my water bottle to see if there was liquor in there. But I have seen a change from the first 2 months at Durfee. There was no security checks, and you could see it was worse in the bathrooms. There's kids vaping, doing a bunch of stuff. But it has come down since security. But I feel like they could do much. They could be more productive instead of going through kids' violin boxes or their pads. I feel like they could do a better job because there's still kids that are able to get vapes and knives and stuff like that. And I just feel like they could do better.
Thank you. Next question, please.
I want to say one thing to you, Lauren. As your former educator, I'm very proud of you for being up there tonight. But I'm also going to tell you one thing. You taught me a very big lesson tonight. Things I have to learn now, too. So to all of you, I want to ask you this simple question. If there was an action step that I can take as a city councilor to help you with your mental health challenges, what would it be?
Were you the one that said that you would add in trails and stuff, or was that the other guy? Okay. I really want attractions where I can just walk around and it feels safe, at least in the city, and be there with my friends after school, whether that's near school or spread out through the city, because Fall River is pretty big but small, but more attractions like that. And I do love the paintings that we have up in the city now. I love seeing those as well. And I know that you guys just added a workout park or something. I saw that on a Fall River page. But stuff like that, outdoorsies, get kids out in nature. It's really a good mental break.
I think definitely, Adun had mentioned the POC Unity Club. I've gone to a few meetings, and I just loved how open it was, the open discussion. So it's if we could have something that was for the full district, where you invite kids of all ages and like from any school, right, to meet and just openly just talk with each other. Find things that they connect with, find experiences that they connect with, because there's gonna be people that feel the same as every single one of us. We just don't know them. So it's kind of like having just that openness and like, so you can go and be like your true self and be vulnerable and stuff like that. I think that is what's needed, not just in schools, but for the whole community. Even have one for adults. I'm not an adult yet. I will be in January. I'm not too excited, but it's just even for adults to just, after work, go to a meeting, not be stigmatized for what you're experiencing, just talk. I think that's what people like, just talking, because everyone says you're on your phones, nobody talks. Like, we talk, we obviously talk. But it's like just being able to not feel like, oh, they're gonna judge me. Oh, I'm doing something bad. And it's just being like vulnerable. I feel like nobody's like vulnerable nowadays. They're too scared of being judged.
Meeting at the same level.
Going to respond, then Caleb. Go ahead.
All right, so I know this isn't really related to school, but I think one of the biggest things for students do is their life outside homes. And I remember being told that there was a gunshot in Locust Street and 2 people got shot. And I live near Locust Street. It's a 15-minute walk from my home. So that's really scary for me and for any student who probably did live in there. I know someone who do live there. So it's scary, and I know someone who has died because of a gunshot. So crime in the city is also something we need to keep in mind, because as students, you don't want them to die, because we are the future, we are the present.
So to kind of piggyback off what Eva just recently said, I definitely think that having that safety established is going to be a big thing for us, because at the end of the day, it's hard for us to worry about our school stresses and things like that when we're worried about outside events going on, whether it be crime rates or, you know, just general like bad things. And you really want to keep that up to par and kind of, you know, keep the streets clean in crime sense. But I would also say, kind of going back to what Faith said with the whole activities for teens and youth, I feel like there's definitely a, not a break, but there's activities for like younger children, of course, like 6 to 12, whatever, but there's really just a gap between that and then adults. There's bars and whatnot. There's not a lot for the teens here, the teen youth in Fall River, that adolescent age, and I feel like if we implemented more activities based towards those groups of different youth, I feel like it would achieve an overall more sense of like togetherness just within the community.
Thank you. Anyone else want to weigh in? Okay, next question.
Thank you.
I had to laugh a little bit because Andrew asked my question, and we do that. It's very typical that we think the same way. But I'm going to add on to that. So let's assume that, just for the sake of argument, Andrew and myself as counselors would be willing to meet with you once a month. All of you, however many wanted to, that we could get together once a month, discuss the issues, discuss whether any progress has been made, so you could give us your ideas on how we can make this world better for you. Is that something that you would want to do, something you'd be willing to do? Would it be helpful?
Yes.
Yeah. I think all of us.
I also think that, like, additionally, like, if we were to meet, if we were to have like a night with city council or school committee where you talk to the students, right? I'd rather it be like you present a practical plan to us, because I mean, I feel like the whole thing of politics is just like, oh, like, you know, you say stuff and then it's like, you say stuff and
This is politics aside, trust me.
So I'm kinda
Politics
just like-
aside, it's not going to
like-
work if it's political.
Yeah, but I just feel like I'd rather someone present to me, oh, so this is what we're going to do. Like when you were doing the pledges, I would always listen to people who said specific things, like specific plans. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like if we were to meet, I would rather city council members think about it and then come back to us with practical plans that they can put in place, because then you have to be held accountable. So.
Well, that absolutely makes sense. So that we would have, so an initial meeting would be you telling us what could be helpful for you. The subsequent meeting and from there forward would be, okay, this is what we're thinking, this is what we want to do. What is your opinion on it?
I think Eva's going to weigh in.
I think one great idea would be having a study on the committee, so you don't really have to meet once a month if something happens in your schedule, and you have a student there who can interact with other students, bring problems to you any time of the day, easily accessible. Yeah.
I think it'd be a great idea to have a student on that committee as well. I was just thinking of something in addition to that, if we could be more helpful to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions? I don't see any. One more. This will be our last question for the evening.
I don't have a question. I just have some words of encouragement. Again, it's crazy to see how mature you guys are, and I think you're on the right path. And really, just be you, work on you, and through your actions, things will change. The world, this is to be honest with you, the world doesn't get easier, it actually gets harder. But through your failures, you will succeed. And I will tell you this, you have to learn from your failures. You have to self-reflect. And that's how you grow. And I'm going to share a secret with you guys.
I think we need a question. This isn't a time for a speech. So if you have a question for the youth, we're going to take that. Just like I cut off the other person,
right.
I'm gonna cut you
I
off
was going to
too.
go on my question.
Okay,
My
let's
question
get to
is,
your question.
how do you view the environment around you, and how do you see the failures and the needs of society, and how do you turn that into energy that gets you going in the morning and that will carry you on to do better things? How do you take the failures around you and make them positive, basically?
So, like I said earlier, a bunch of us run a lot of clubs and have started our own. So as being presidents, we like to make sure that we can meet one-on-one with these students at a time, making sure like, hey, are you doing all right? And then it's kind of like a mutual thing of like, oh, are you doing all right? Because you're doing so much more than me. But it's kind of like you want to make sure that it's known that we care for them. We want to make sure that they're succeeding. Even if they have failed, like I mentioned, failing is okay as long as you learn from it and pick yourself back up. So even if they failed, you want to give them that reminder, like, hey, teenager to teenager, girl to girl, guy to guy, we're here for you. If you need help, just keep moving on.
And that was my point. And through failures, you actually learn more than
Excuse me,
successes.
I think
So
there's someone else
thank
that's
you.
going to weigh in. Lauren, you've asked your question. Now it's time for them to answer. Thanks.
I wanted to say that with failure, I feel like at our school specifically, there are two different responses, and they are put on to different groups of students. At our school, we have the AP students and we have the CP students. And I feel like when an AP student makes a mistake, their mistakes are handed like, oh, you did something wrong. Here's a pat on the shoulder. You can fix that. But if a CP kid makes the same mistake and they go to the bathroom and they smoke, it's now suddenly like the end of the world, and we need to make sure that that kid has the biggest punishment ever given to them. And that is unfair. I feel that we are punishing students based on the environments that they grew up in and not with the potential that they have. We are unfairly punishing students and then forcing them to think that that is their identity. By punishing a CP student for smoking in the bathroom and by putting that stress on them and making them feel that they are a terrible person, we are then encouraging them to do that action again. And then we are going to that kid and telling them, why haven't you changed? And that is very unfair to them. And I think we need to change that environment of how we treat students.
Thank you. Good luck.
Well, we've had some amazing discussions tonight, and we've had some amazing words from our youth. They have a lot of wisdom. I do want to remind them that you are still kids. You don't have to be adults yet. And one of the things that I discovered is before I went to college, I thought there were 70 jobs in the world. And then I went to college and I discovered there were 700,000 jobs in the world. We hope that when you leave Fall River, you will go someplace where your eyes will be open and you'll be able to see the bounty of everything that's out there in the world and assimilate it, and then come back to us here in Fall River and make the community better. Because I have full confidence that every one of you is going to change the world.
Thank you all for your time.